What's up, guys? It's JZNES back again with another video. Today we're gonna talk some Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4. No, seriously though, I'm talking Uncharted 4. Sorry, this is my best interpretation at pirate here. You know, it's got the skull. It's kind of like, you know, it's whatever. I know this is a Metal Gear shirt, but that's the best I can do. But anyway, the game's kind of about pirates. I mean, I guess that's the next direction to take a treasure hunting game. You know, naturally, treasure hunting, pirates. I swear to God, he just knows when videos are starting. Treasure hunting, pirates, that kind of thing. The plot of the game is all you're searching for this, like, the grand pirate treasure. You're basically One Piece. That's what you are, you know? What the fuck is I can't remember the One Piece theme song, but anyway. So, yeah, you're searching for the great pirate treasure. You know, there's this guy, Avery. You're searching for his treasure, and then you end up finding out he, like, formed this pirate, union or whatever. It's, like, spoilers for Uncharted 4. It's pirate utopia is what I was trying to say. So, yeah, Nathan Drake kind of comes out of retirement. He's basically, it's interesting because he's like, gave it up. He wanted like a normal life with Elena, and I think that's kind of cool. So yeah, that's like a good, cool aspect and a nice launching place for the story today is that. But I mean, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Uncharted 4, obviously the sequel to the other Uncharted games. The sequel to my favorite Uncharted game, Uncharted 3 there. And of course I played The Last of Us in between there. But Uncharted 3 there was my favorite Uncharted game. Still is my favorite Uncharted game. I guess spoilers for that. But I still feel like that's the best one. There's a lot of things about Uncharted 3 that make it the best one. And one of the things that I praised it for before was finally giving Nathan Drake kind of a backstory. They do that as well in this game. They give him a lot more depth to his backstory, which I thought was so-so. For the first, like, half or so, maybe even, like, it's like, say, like, the first 70% of the game, wasn't super in love with this character that they added in here, Nathan Drake's brother character. And one of the main things that bothered me about the game, I liked bits and pieces of this guy, and I especially liked him near the end, and he played well into the ending, and then he had moments in the middle there that were good. But one of the like stupidest parts of this whole game that I really didn't like was this like third act twist where it's like, oh, there wasn't this Alcazar guy who broke him out of prison or whatever. What ends up happening at the beginning of the game is he gets caught trying to save you guys. You think he's dead, but he ends up not being dead, and he ends up going to prison this whole time. So he's basically taking your prison sentence in a sense. But yeah, and then he makes up this whole story about this like drug lord who gets him out, and that's why he needs to find the treasure, when in reality it was just a whole greedy thing where he wants to find the treasure himself. And I'm sure he could have just said that, but also then Nathan Drake might have not done the thing to help him, so he had to invent some kind of story about it. But I still think it's awkward that he like lied about it or whatever, and then he was actually working for Rafe or whatever, who ends up being the villain of the story. He's another guy who you like broke out of the initial. So there is a prison that you're breaking out of. I'm trying to think if Sam was a part of that or not. He must have been a part of that, and yeah, he's a part of that initial prison break with you and Nathan Drake, and or was you are Nathan Drake, but Nathan Drake and the other guy I was just talking about, Rafe, who ends up becoming the villain. Can you still, bud? It's all good. You know, hey, okay, come on. I don't even, fuck, I didn't even have the game sitting here in front of me, do I? Man, this is the worst review ever. There's the game right there. We're talking about Uncharted 4. Take a seat. So, let me get the thing going here. This is obviously not very fucking down. No, dude, you can't sit there. You're gonna sit in front of the games. Come on. No. Come on, sit over it. There you go. You can sit there. You don't have to be camera hog. So anyway, just quickly derailing. Uncharted 4. Yeah, so I'm not completely in love with Nathan Drake's brother there. I think he's a big aspect to the game. He's voiced by Troy Baker, who's a great voice actor. And I love him and stuff like The Last of Us and Persona 4 and stuff, but I like his performance. It sounds a lot like Nathan Drake, so I get them kind of not mixed up, but just like they're very similar sounding, which is good because they're brothers. So yeah, that's kind of the one thing that bothered me out of the blue to start with, is just that he has a brother and he never mentioned it before. Like the implication is that his brother died and that's why he would never have had to have mentioned it before. But like, I don't know, you think during that part as a kid, in the third game, he would have said something about his brother, something. I don't know, or that would have came up, or it just seems odd to me, that this never came up or whatnot until just now. And I want to know when that part in the third game actually takes place. That just kind of seems like an awkward thing that never would have happened now, given his new orphanage backstory or whatever. So, personally, it conflicted with me with my overall look and view of the previous games, which you don't fuck with Uncharted 3 in the story there, because that's my boy, that's my favorite one there. Yeah, I don't like how it was like this setup where it's like, oh, I didn't like that twist. I hated that twist. I thought that was the dumbest twist ever. I knew there was something up with him. You could tell just by the way he was doing stuff, but when he's just like, I just did it all for the treasure, and it's like, that ends up coming into the story later, like everyone who wants the treasure is kind of consumed by greed about the treasure. There's not really a supernatural element in this one either. They joke about pirate ghosts or whatever. I was really expecting something like that. There's always a supernatural element or like a extra sort of thing. This is really just about getting a treasure, and it's not actually cursed. It's just the fact that the treasure is so big that everyone wants it, so it's like, I that's what I kind of wanted ever since Uncharted 1, was just for them to get a real treasure. But I don't know, it just feels weird that every game would follow that formula. There always being something cursed or something supernatural about it, but yeah, no, they didn't follow that trend at all. It's just about pirates and them pooling the treasure. And there wasn't, the thing was that the game, not that it dragged on, but that it kind of felt like that. It's definitely the longest of the Uncharted games there, and that's because they had to wrap up the story, and I totally understand that. But the story is at the forefront here, compared to the other Uncharted games. It's definitely taken very much front seat. For the first 10 or so chapters, you barely get to do any action outside of sneaking. There's barely any shooting out or any of that. And that's half the game. There's only 22 chapters. There's barely any action in those first 10 chapters. And I'm just huh. They just took a totally stealthy kind of approach to it. And then later on, when they still expect you to be stealthy, you just, there's no way you could sneak through all those guys. There's literally guys with armor, which is guys you can't take down with melee, blocking this one part, this cave or whatever. It's dude, how the fuck am I supposed to sneak past those guys? That's not gonna happen. So, I don't know. The game was very insistent on stealth, but it didn't always make it optimal to be stealthy. That's just so odd. And then later on they have more shootouts and whatnot, but that was like the last fourth of the game, you know, is really more action oriented. So it was just kind of a weird balancing thing, for me anyway. And not that there's not shootouts and stuff in the middle. I'm just saying, like, probably the first half of the game, or not even really the first half. See, the first like 3 or 4 hours of the game is that first 10 chapters, and then the rest of the 15 hours. I don't know if I actually put in 15 hours to the game, but the rest of that is the other like 12 chapters. Like, it seems like really unbalanced. But I know I just like zoomed through those first 10 chapters, and then they got significantly longer from there or something. It's very strange. Um, so yeah, it's just really weird. There's a lot of little things like that that kind of didn't sit right with me about the game. And like I said, Nathan Drake's brother there, I just really didn't like how he came out of nowhere, and then he's just like, I just didn't really connect with him until like probably the end of the game, where he starts becoming more humanized. It's humanized. I don't know, like, he just, by the end of the game, he started feeling not like such an asshole who's just obsessed with his treasure or whatever. And that was his whole thing. And I get that was his whole part in the story, was him being obsessed with the treasure, where Nathan Drake couldn't be. I don't know what he's looking at. Where Nathan Drake couldn't be because he's changed as a person, and I appreciate that, and he's kind of Nathan Drake's stand-in. But it just felt really awkward for him to be there like that. I don't know. And then there's a chapter like later on where you're a kid again, and you're like breaking into his mansion to find some of your mother's old journals or whatever. And I kind of liked that part better than the earlier part where you're a kid. It's like the first 4 or so chapters, right? Maybe it was like chapter 5 when you're a kid or something. Those ones kind of dragged on for me a bit. Yeah, I was just like, when are we gonna kind of get to the more refined gameplay and whatnot? And I liked the introduction where Nathan Drake's just kind of living a normal life, and you like play Crash Bandicoot and stuff, but like, it's kind of that Dragon Quest IV mentality, you know, where the opening there is great, but I'm impatient. I want to get to the game because this is Uncharted 4, and all I've ever heard about is how this is the best one, you know, and stuff. So, yeah. But that kind of bothered me. I feel like the weapon variety compared to the previous games was kind of lacking. I don't know. It was fine, but it's just like there wasn't like a whole lot going on there. Basically just a bunch of different pistols, and they're shot. I mean, it's kind of similar to the older game. I just felt like the other ones had like more of a variety there. This might have the most weapons. I'm not sure. Maybe they just felt the most situational or whatnot. One thing else that I didn't really like about the game, I'm trying to get all the negatives out of the way first, there's a lot of block pushing puzzles. They definitely took some inspiration from The Last of Us there, to like do that. And there's a lot more like teamwork puzzles. I know they had those in the other games, but it was very reliant on you always having somebody there. Usually for like 80% of the game, it was your brother. He's fine, but his like whole defining thing was like, hey, I want to find this treasure, and he wasn't really a lot beyond that for most of the game. The like really heavy, like, you know, and then it's like, how do I trust anything that he said, because he lied about the whole Alcazar thing and like breaking out of prison, and that he owed like a life debt to this guy. So I don't know. Like that whole thing just rubbed me the wrong way. And I know Nathan Drake lies to Elena, which is another thing that I didn't like at all. Like, why would he lie to her? Like, that's stupid. Just, like, I get that's to cause tension later in the story or whatever, but that's the problem. The story is just so up and down. It's like there's good elements and there's bad elements. I think the over insistence on the pirate stuff, like, really, there's so much of that in there compared to like the previous games, um, where they'll just go on and on and on about this pirate stuff, and a lot of it's kind of interesting, but it's like man, they just really go into it. It's like, you know, they keep saying like really similar stuff, and I don't know. I felt like the pirate storyline just kind of, maybe because the game is 15 hours, it just, everything just kind of felt like it dragged on a little bit. You know, it's like maybe these Uncharted games were just meant to be like a 8-9 hour experience, and that extra 5 or 6 hours there, or 6 or 7 hours there, just really is what I was feeling by the end of this game. Um, because the gameplay is very similar the whole time too, and you know, you just, by the end you feel like, hey man, you know, like, okay, the other thing is that they kept having to, this thing's leading us to this thing's leading us to this thing, okay, we gotta go to this next spot, we gotta go to this next spot. It's always about going, oh hey, there's that thing and there's, oh we gotta go to that thing and this, that thing and this. I mean, we just fucking kept moving to these different places. We never made any progress. Even when we find a clue, we just had to go to another place, another place, another place. And I know some of the other Uncharted games did that, but not like to this extent where it was like, okay, so I guess it's not here. I guess it's not here. I guess it's not. Like, I felt like the other Uncharted games is like, whenever there was a clue, it was like, it felt like it was really leading, it usually led somewhere else. Like, not just like, you know, just right over there or whatever. So it's just like, it's just like dragged on. The variety in areas wasn't like that immense, you know. In the other games, there was like the desert, there was like the town, you know, there's like this and that and this, and they had a little bit of that here, but it felt like mostly just town, like watery island area, you know. That was pretty much it. It was like the two kind of different areas that we had here. Um, so yeah, the variety was kind of lacking, I suppose. But but you know, it's not all bad. I do enjoy the game. I think that the game is good. I'm just putting out these criticisms here because I think this game is one of those games that is held up on a pedestal, like it's the best one, you know. It's like the Metal Gear Solid 4 of Uncharted, like series defining kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's great, and I do really like the ending, and I thought it ended very well, but like, I'm just saying, there's a lot of kind of issues in there. Another thing I didn't like was that they kind of introduce Elena again, like, hey, she's a really big part of his life, and then they just kind of cut her out for a while there, and then she gets her time to shine at the end, but like, that's it, you know. um, I kind of miss the variety. Since your brother is there like most of the game, I kind of get sick of him. I wanted to like do the interspersed story things, like where we cut him out for a little bit and then we have Lena, and then you know, and we did do that like at the end of the game, but that's my point, is it's near the end of the game. Like, this needed to be balanced throughout the game, would have been better. Um, but he's like just constantly glued to your side like most of the game, and so a little variety on that sense would have worked too. But, you know, it's not all bad. I liked the... So let's start to get to the positives, right? So the gameplay is tried and true. It's the same stuff as it ever was. Now, one of the two little additions that they made, one in particular, Nathan Drake now has this like grappling hook thing that can like swing you across like little branches and like knock down certain things, and you later on you get like a car and like you can tie that around things to, like, knock things down. That is naturally cool, and that was, it just makes so much sense. It's like Indiana Jones' whip. It should have been there from the start, you know. And this series is very heavily inspired by Indiana Jones and National Treasure. But this grappling hook thing that his brother gave him um, really feels like it should have just been there in all the other Uncharted games, and I think that's a great addition to the series. I think that's I mean, to the series. The series is over now, but I think that's great. Um, I think that's really cool, and I think that's very natural an extension to the series. Later on, you get this like little hook thing, or not like a hook. It's like like a thing that you like stab into certain areas of the wall, and I think that also is a pretty cool thing, but you know, it's like that's such a limited use in compared to the grapple hook, and you only get that like at near the very end of the game there. So yeah, but that's also kind of cool. But I really like the grappling hook thing. It's not grappling hook, but it makes me think of the Zelda in the Wind Waker when he has the little spinny thing, and it's a lot like that, honestly. Less like the hook shot is what I'm saying. I think in the Wind Waker it was called like a grappling hook, right, or like something like that. Um, but yeah, so I like that. I thought that was a good addition to the game there. Um, Overall, when it wasn't overstaying its welcome, I did like the story, and I thought the whole pirate treasure thing and then pooling together their treasures and whatnot was really cool. Particularly, I liked the ending to the story and kind of the beginning there where he's just kind of living his normal life. I thought that was really cool. And they have a lot of like little references, and you like to get to walk through his house and stuff and see he has like little journals from all the old games, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And there's like a part where you're telling your brother about everything you've been up to, and you get to choose which one you want to be your greatest adventure. And of course, I chose Uncharted 3, and I just thought, oh, that's really neat, you know, like that you could choose each one. And he starts to like tell the story, and then like it affects like a few dialogue things there about that being your greatest adventure. And I'm just like, oh man, that's so cool. Little things like that. That's fan service done right there. You know, that's not pandering. That's good shit right there. Especially for your final sort of really final game. You know, I know there was that Uncharted Sisterly Love or whatever the fuck that was. What the hell was that called? Uncharted something. Like, it's not Uncharted 5. That was a Golden Abyss too. I never played that one. But yeah, the girl Uncharted. I don't know what to call it. Lost Legacy, is that what it's called, right? That one. But anyway, you know, fuck that shit. Chloe comes back in that one. From 2 there. You know, there's surprisingly very little Uncharted 2 references in this game. So cool for that. No, I like Uncharted 2, but it's not as good as the other ones. It's still the lowest man on the totem pole, as far as I'm concerned. Um, let's see, what else? One other kind of thing that was sort of weak, at least while I was playing the game. Not that it was bad. I mean, what I'm listening to right now sounds pretty good, but the music really didn't stand out as much as it did in the other Uncharted games. Which is surprising. Kind of surprises me. Usually Uncharted has some pretty like memorable action music, but I didn't feel any of that. You know, like I really wasn't quite as memorable this time around. And the theme doesn't even play on the title screen or whatever. It's just silence, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. You know, like that's different. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of odd. Like, listen to this. This sounds pretty cool. When was this in the game? I don't remember this. What's this called? Uncharted 4. It's called The Thief's End, by the way, the Uncharted game here. The 12 Towers. When the fuck did this play during the 12 Towers? Was this like during the action or something? I bet you this was. This is bullshit. Maybe this is when you're trying to escape from the guys or whatever. Maybe that was later on. I don't know. This sounds cool. I like this, you know? Like, wasn't very pronounced in the game, that's for goddamn sure. It's because they're fucking constantly talking the whole time, you know? Like, shit, man. There's so much more dialogue here, I swear, than the other Uncharted's. Because there's so many more characters. You know, you have Sully, and then you also have Elena, and you have your brother, and your brother constantly talks about this treasure and won't shut up about it. And I get that's kind of the story thing that, well, you chill, just chill. Don't go over here. It's fine. You're good. Just hang out, bud. So silly. Anyway. Yeah, I just what else? You know, other than that, it's just like the standard Uncharted gameplay. You climb shit, and you can use your grappling hook now, and that saves you from lots of stuff. There's also sliding mechanics on like on mud and stuff. You kind of slide down stuff, and that's like a whole nother thing for this game. You kind of use that in strategic ways for the level design and whatnot. There's little explorative bits where I feel like it's more open than the other Uncharted games. I think that's kind of cool. I feel like the treasures, again, really weren't anything special. I think I said that in one of the other Uncharted videos, is that the treasures weren't that cool. But like they were like well hidden enough, or like kind of on the path, but just a side little path there. I thought that was cool. I ended up finding a decent majority of those. I feel like in the middle of the game I kind of was lacking on treasures, but it's another nice little collectible. And there's like little journal entries and whatever scattered everywhere, kind of like the Resident Evil files, where they'll add like extra lore to stuff. So that's kind of cool. I like that. I didn't end up reading a lot of those, but I ended up reading a good majority of those. Or not a good majority, some of those. I ended up picking up a good majority of those, is what I should be saying. So there's a lot of like little collectible things throughout the game there. You're always looking, of course, for ammo and stuff during the shootouts, but that's a kind of a different scenario there. They always encourage you to start with stealth on the shootouts, though, which doesn't really end up working out. This series thinks it's Metal Gear Solid, but it's really not. You know, it's always trying to be, but it's really not, you know. It's not as easy to sneak around. They do have like a little diamond meter system, like it fills in as the enemies like see you or whatever. So it's like, that's kind of cool. That's kind of like your Metal Gear like evasion mode, or like not evasion mode, but like awareness of them finding you kind of thing. I don't know. That's neat. I like that. It's I don't know if they had that in the previous games. I don't believe that they did. But I feel like everything's pretty well refined. Everything feels good this time around. There are some still like bullshit jumps where it's like, why is this so awkward to jump to this one? But it's not quite as many as like the first game or like the second game there. It's just few and far between, which is better. So they've definitely improved on the gameplay elements there. It's more refined. It's more well done. You know, I think that's kind of the mentality in general, other than them like really not balancing story and stuff. So the humor, I think, is still kind of on point. So they still have that classic Uncharted humor in there, and I kind of like, I very much appreciate that. But they're not afraid to get some kind of semi-emotional moments in there, at least with Nate and Elena there. I like, so few times with like Sully and his brother and stuff. Like, so yeah, there's some nice moments in there for that. But I guess I should talk about the villains. I like Rafe as a villain. He kind of starts off with you early on, but he kind of takes a different mentality and a different path and really goes kind of overblown with it. But he's always got his eyes on that prize, and he never wants to trust Drake or his brother there, and he's always trying to get you guys at every turn, but he knows he needs you until like the very end, where he's legitimately trying to kill you at the very end there. And he tries to screw over his partner too, this like lady, who is just basically content to walk away at the end there. That's kind of the thing. I could talk about the story and like where it goes, but basically what it is Nathan Drake gets back into it for his brother, and then you find out that his brother was lying to him the whole time. And Elena gets pissed that you were lying to her. And then the very end of the game, they find the treasure. After a whole bunch of bullshit of like, oh, now we have to go here. 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 That all that annoying stuff I was talking about. And then, that was it. And then they find the treasure, the pirate treasure. And each time you kind of figure out, oh yeah, like now these guys are in on this pirate treasure, and like this pirate treasure must be a lot bigger now. And then you end up finding it on like this one ship. Now it's a big ship, but just the way they're describing it can never live up. I'm expecting like a National Treasure 1 kind of treasure. This is probably my bad imagination on that one, but it just fills one ship. It's still a lot of treasure. I mean, had they got that treasure out of there, which they still could, by the way. That was my other kind of complaint with it, was like, caved in, but you could probably just dynamite that thing and then like swim in there and get some of that treasure, even though it's like sunk now. My main thing before that was like, okay, the ship's on fire, probably all this gold is gonna like melt down or something. But no, then the ship ends up sinking, so the treasure's all still there. They can just go back and get it anytime, but they don't. So, you know, the thing is like, oh, the caved in or whatever. It's like, yeah, but you know where the treasure is. You're gonna let that stop you? You wanna let that stop you in the past? The whole thing is later on that like the treasure becomes less important, and they just want to get his brother out of there. His brother keeps going back for the treasure, blah, 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 blah. And his brother almost makes you leave him there, but Nathan Drake finds out a way to kind of get him unstuck from this thing. The whole final boss there is like a sword fight, which is pretty cool with you and Rafe. I was talking about Rafe earlier. No, I pretty much said what I need to say about him, but he's a good villain. I like him. I think he's pretty competent. He's a lot better than the villain in 2, and I don't even remember the villain in 1. He's probably better than that guy. So, pretty good villain. I like his character. He's not just a twirling mustache, you know, kind of villain. He's not that he has like nuance, but he's smart, and I like that. He's definitely always trying to get ahead and trying to connive his way to get the best cut of the treasure and that kind of stuff. I think that's cool. But anyway, you end up finding this treasure on this ship, and the ship's like burning down, and he's ready to like burn down with it, essentially. He wants to get the treasure out of there, but he wants to get all of the treasure out of there. This lady just takes like 2 things of it, and she's like, this is already worth millions and millions. Like, I think this is fine. Even though, and then he's like, but what about all your men who died? Like, wouldn't you rather just get the full cut of this thing? And she's like, nah, I'm good. And she just leaves. He won't let her leave for a second. He like holds a gun to her head, but she just leaves. Later on, she traps you guys in the final treasure room there that's on fire. The sword fighting is pretty decent. There's like 2 buttons to dodge each way of his attacks or whatever, and then it's a lot of button mashing and stuff. But it is a cool like concept. It goes on maybe a little long, everything in this game, but yeah, it's I liked it. I thought that was cool. As soon as like he picks up the sword, I'm like, we're gonna do a fucking pirate sword battle at the end here. Isn't this you know, like, I knew that was coming, so I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a good way to end it, since the whole game is, you know, you being following these pirates and all of that. So that's cool. But yeah, you end up saving your brother. He ends up sneaking out just a little bit of the treasure, just like kind of like Uncharted 1 there, where they just get a little bit of the treasure. So it's like ends up funding Nathan Drake's like his business there that you see at the beginning of the game is salvage like diving business there. So that's pretty cool. I definitely I like that, and I like that he had kind of a way of normalizing the stuff that he was doing. You know, this exploration stuff there, and the implication later on post game is that he does kind of go back to the treasure hunting stuff with Elena there, and that must be kind of what they do with the business. But anyway, the little bit of treasure that he gets, like the few coins or whatever is what they implied it was, that Sam snuck out, and a few that Elena snuck out or something like that, ends up funding their stuff there and funding their nice little life there. So that's cool. I like that, and I like the epilogue there where you get to play as the kid for a second. So yeah, neato stuff there, and you get to like discover. Then they have to like tell her how they were treasure hunters, and they just start with like the first story. There's like a really nice picture from the end of Uncharted 1 there with Sully and Elena, that the daughter finds or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, this is neat. I like this. You can call back to Uncharted 1 there, which is like my third, probably my third one now. I think this one, despite like its flaws, is probably the second best one. I don't know. I still really am very partial to Uncharted 1. If it wasn't for the gameplay stuff in Uncharted 1, I think that that game would have the edge. Story-wise and whatnot, I do like this one, though, the way it goes, and the character that... But the first story is just so classic, you know? I just love it. It's very National Treasure 1, or... It's kind of the Raiders of the Lost Ark of these, but, you know, my favorite was Last Crusade. But the point is that it's just it's a classic for a reason, and everyone hates on Uncharted 1, and I think that's a good one. It's underrated, you know, so... I don't know. Somebody's got to stand up for it, right? I think that one is one of my more favorite ones. So, yeah. So, but... God damn it, cat. Jesus Christ. You just stay put? But yeah. So, I don't know. But I liked this story. It's just like, there was a lot of pirate talk there. Talk about the pirates, and just, in the other games it felt like we were talking about, there was a lot of aspects to each of the treasure hunts, and it didn't feel like as much here. It just felt like we're talking about these same pirates for most of the time, and a lot of the same aspects there. But yeah, so... But yeah, I liked the epilogue. That's what I was really talking about there for a second. Is the epilogue. I liked that. I thought that was good. And the whole ending there is just a really nice note. They kind of set up the fact that Sam's going to go on to do what Nathan Drake did with Sully, who I thought was totally going to die somewhere in this game because he's so old now. Because like the whole thing is like, yeah, and the other thing was like, even when Nathan Drake gets old later on, he doesn't even look that old. Like, I want to see like an old Nathan Drake and just have him like, whatever. It's all good. You know, we never got old Snake Nathan Drake at any point. So there's that. But Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. I kind of thought that's what we're gonna get, since this is like the Thief's End. This is Uncharted 4, you know. So you know, the one thing that they did kind of reference from Uncharted 2 was they start off, you're on this boat, going towards this island in this storm, and then with Sam, and you're like, well, who's Sam? Is he from one of the previous games? I just don't remember because I haven't played him in a while. And then it's like, no, he's your brother who we're just getting introduced right now. So it's like, okay, but you're going towards this island, and then you crash or whatever, and then it cuts back to you being a kid, I think, or something like that, or cuts to some other time. I think it cuts to you being a kid, and then that's how you kind of figure out who Sam is. But that ends up being like later on in the game. Obviously, you know, it's like a climactic thing later on, and then but they kind of fake you out because you go towards this one island and it's like that's not the one, and then you like see the storm or whatever, and then they just kind of flash through you doing that original section from the beginning of the game. You don't actually have to do it again like in Uncharted 2 with the train thing is what I'm kind of referencing there, because it's very similar to that, where you kind of start that and then you do that again later on. But yeah, so um, I don't know. That's kind of about what there is to say. Graphically, I think it's a nice step up from the third game. Like, the Uncharted games always look good, and of course this is a PS4, so it's gonna look a lot better, and they have a lot of more room to play with that now. So graphically, yeah, it looks a lot better, obviously. I think it's a natural evolution graphically to the series, and I like that. But yeah, it's the end of the series there, and I think it was a pretty good ending. There were some mixed issues there, but overall it pulled it off in the end. It ended well enough. It's just the journey that was kind of rough at times, I guess. And so in that sense, the series kind of came full circle, because the first one had some rough elements to it as well, but it's still a great game in the end. And I think that this is still a great game, but I don't know if it would be like even one of my favorite Uncharted games. I mean, there's only 4 of them that I'm even counting, but there's a lot of great aspects to it. It's just when I think about the other Uncharted games, and maybe I'm just biased because of I am slightly nostalgic about those games from like, you know, like 8 years ago, or wherever the hell I played them to the first time. So, but I don't know. I don't know if this game's gonna have a lot of those classic Uncharted moments that stick out in my head when I think back on Uncharted there. Like I was kind of expecting. That was mainly the problem, I think, that I was very hyped for this game. Uh, Hearing it's the best one from everyone, which I don't really agree with. In my opinion, 3 is always going to be the best one. But even the other 2 kind of have their strengths over this game. But I do like this game too, and it has its strengths that can be compared or maybe be better than the other 2 games. So it's just kind of hard to say. I don't know. Earlier I said it was like the second best one. In terms of gameplay and stuff, yeah, pretty much. But there are some elements that drag it down that I didn't really jive with quite as much. like that twist with his brother. I just thought that was lame, and so that kind of soured me on his character a while, and I never was really too high on him until like the end there. He had his moments. That's what that was kind of the idea with him. Um, so yeah, I don't know. But I like the game. Overall, it's just things like that. Things like I will say, listening to the music now, it's pretty good, but it's not very pronounced in the game, as far as I could tell. So that's maybe a mixed thing as well. It's just kind of a mixed experience, you know? Like, graphically, it was nice. That's why I said that. Story-wise, it was like, yeah, it was good, but like, I don't know. Length-wise, I guess, I feel like it just, maybe it was just slightly too long. I don't know. Could have cut out a chapter or two in there in the middle. Somewhere, I'm sure. That we really didn't need. But, yeah. So, I liked the game, but it has its flaws as well. But it has a lot of strengths as well. And for an ending to Nathan Drake's story, I think it works really well. Kind of his last final adventure and just the way that they wrapped things up with him was really nice. And I definitely appreciated that. So, yeah. So I like the game. I'm going to give it an 8.2 out of 10. For being a pretty good game. So, yeah, it works. Also, what's funny is, not that I'll make my point here in a second. It comes with a thing for the Last Guardian there, which is a very disappointing like build up to that game when I finally played that. But this game's not necessarily disappointing. It's just not really what I expected, you know, in the sense that it had been hyped up pretty good for me. And I was expecting kind of the Metal Gear Solid 4 of Uncharted games there. And maybe it is that, you know, but Uncharted 3 is the Snake Eater of Metal Gear games there, which is everyone's favorite. Not in Uncharted series, but you know, Snake Eater is everyone's favorite, and it's my favorite. Uncharted 3 is my favorite, not Snake Eater. Snake Eater is my like third favorite Metal Gear game. So Snake Eater's great though. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Uncharted. So yeah. Overall, it's a great series. I would recommend playing them. I recommend getting the collection here. That definitely is the primo way to do it at this point. But yeah, it's a thieves' end and a reviewer's end. This is the end of reviewing the Uncharted games. Maybe I'll do Golden Abyss at some point, but I'm not gonna do Lost Legacy at all. I wouldn't imagine. Maybe, you know, how many years down the road. It did get me semi-interested in playing Crash Bandicoot, though. I don't know if I'm gonna do that though, because I know how difficult those games can be, and especially at 100% and stuff. But you gotta play that at a certain section in the game there, and so yeah. But it made me want to like track down the Insane trilogy. I don't know if the Switch version of that is any good or what, but I was thinking about getting that just because of this. So maybe you'll see some reviews on that in the future. That was Naughty Dog's like one of their first series there. Not necessarily their first. I think there was something before that, but one of their first big series there. So yeah, I liked Uncharted 4. It had its problems, but until next time, this has been JZNES burping, saying keep it classic. Stick around for more reviews, underrated games. I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ out.